Welcome to the Leverage Show. This is Brett. Do you know that a lot of lottery winners actually end up going broke? Yeah, a lot of them actually spend all the money that they've made and sometimes even more, and they end up in a worse financial situation than they did before they won the lottery. But the funny thing is, if you ask most people, if you talk to most people and you said, do you think winning the lottery would, change your life? Or at least, do you think it would solve your financial problems? Almost everybody that you ask will say yes. It'll solve my financial problems. I can pay all my bills. I can buy all the things that I want. Never need to worry about spending money again. So I guess the interesting question then is, why is it that if you've won a pile of money, that you would eventually end up going broke and end up in a worse situation? It doesn't seem to make any sense on the surface. But if you dig a little deeper, what you find is not only does it make sense, but it applies in a really real way to business and to running your own business and having your own business as well. And here's really the truth of it. So the thing of it is money management is a skill, and it's a skill just like any other skill. And so if you give somebody who does not have any idea how to manage their finances, if they're in a tough financial spot, it's not always the case that it was their fault. Maybe there were some, circumstances beyond their control that caused them to be in that situation, and that does happen. But more often than not, it comes from bad money management. It comes from living beyond your means, regardless of what those means are. So whether you're a millionaire or a billionaire or, whether you're earning minimum wage, the key is to spend less than what you make, because if you don't, you're going to end up in debt and you're going to end up with financial problems. It's funny because my business attorney had said to me one time, you'd be surprised, I'll bet you think that most people that end up declaring bankruptcy do it because they're poor. And he said, actually, most of my clients that end up going through a bankruptcy proceeding are actually wealthy, or they were wealthy. They had tons of money. He told me stories of people that racked up $10, $20, $50, $100, $200,000 in debt, even on just at Home Depot. And they did it on credit terms and everything else because they had a tremendous income or earning potential, but they had zero financial management skills. And so they were making all this money and they, started spending at a ridiculous rate. And this is not uncommon if you've heard stories of professional athletes. This is a pretty common situation. You give somebody with a ton, without any financial management experience and without any good guidance or advisors, a ton of money. And especially when they're young, they don't really think about the fact that their career is probably only going to last for a few years. So they make a tremendous amount of money over a short period of time, but then ultimately what happens is the money dries up, the income side dries up, but they've bought all of these things like an expensive house, expensive cars that not only cost a lot in up front, but in maintenance and upkeep and taxes and all these other things. And so the monthly amount of money it takes just to sustain what they have is so high that they can't afford the living. And so on the outside, you look at that and you say, how could this multimillionaire go broke? How could they do this? I can't believe that they did that. I would never do that. But the reality of it is, if they've never had any training or any understanding of what it takes to manage money in a way that makes sense and that's responsible, it's hard to expect them to know anything different. They have a certain amount of money. They think, why not go and spend it? And here's why this relates back to business. Because if whatever business that you're in, you do not have the skill, and I've seen this with people that have purchased businesses. You see a business and the business is successful. And when I've sold businesses off, throughout my career, I always look for warning signs with buyers, because for me, it's important that it's a win-win situation. And so if I see buyers asking questions like, how much money am I going to make the first 30 days? It's all about how much they're going to make, and it's not about how much they need to put into the business from an investment standpoint of time and energy and effort. And those to me are big, big warning signs, because the fact is, if you're just trying to purchase something outright that somebody else is doing, it's going to be hard for you to be as successful at it as they were, because you don't have the skills yet. You haven't developed those skills. And so, how this relates to your business is, it doesn't matter what level of success that you're at. It doesn't matter what level of sales or what level of income or anything else, because there's a process by which you need to go through in order to develop the skills to be able to not only build the business to a certain level, but be able to sustain it. And the skills that are required at every different level in a business are completely different. So to start a business and to found a business, it requires a different skill set than it does to take a business from $1 million in sales to 10 million or 100 million in sales. Those are very different skill sets. And so if you step in as CEO of a $100 million business and you've never done it before, chances are you're going to have your struggles. You're going to need a really strong management team around you of people that are seasoned and experienced, or you're going to need some mentors that have done this or are actively doing it that can give you advice about what you need to do in order to run this business successfully, because it's a totally different situation. An employee-less business versus a business with tons of employees. Again, it's a totally different skill set to be able to manage yourself and do what you need to do versus managing other people and finding out how to get productivity out of them, and how to delegate various things that need to be done. And so why this is so important to really understand as an entrepreneur and as a business owner is because no matter what situation you're in and what challenges you're facing, it's important that you find a way to persevere and develop the skills you need to get through the challenges. And so you want to look at those challenges as exactly that, as a challenge, as an opportunity to grow. They're not all obstacles saying, you're not going to make it and, you should get discouraged by it. You should view it as a challenge and want to overcome that obstacle, because when you do, you add to your own personal skills toolkit another skill. The ability to sort of, work through this problem and work through that problem and persevere and find a way to get it done. And, why that's so important is because when you're sitting there and you're running your business and you're at $1 million or 5 million or 10 million in sales, and you've grown it to that level and built it to that level and have been running it at that level, you have the skills and the ability to do that. And those skills are something no one can ever take from you. So no matter what, even with your existing business, even if for whatever reason, the market that you were in completely imploded overnight, you still have a skill set that you can take and use elsewhere to do exactly the same thing. So my challenge and my thought about this for you is, instead of worrying about the destination, we think so much about where we want to go. I want my business to make me this amount of money, and I want it to, service this many customers, and I want to be able to, buy all these things or do this or have this financial security or whatever. And all of those are good and important and motivating and, totally valid sources and feelings about running your own business. But here's the thing about it. Focus more on the process. Focus more on the process of going through where you are to where you need to get. And, number one, you're going to develop those skills that are then going to be able to put you in a situation where you now have that in your toolkit and you are able to continue to do this for as long as you want to. And you can do it with any other business also, because businesses are very, very similar regardless of what industries that they're in. But the other thing is, when you start to enjoy the process and you think about it as a process, you get a little bit less impatient and worried about the end result. And you start to realize that, not only is this fun, but it's also extremely rewarding, because for whatever financial success or whatever financial goals or results that I've been able to get in my business, and obviously I'm, always trying to grow that too, like anybody else. One of the biggest sources of pride that I have, and one of the biggest things that I feel a great sense of accomplishment, is the fact that when I started in the business world and I started as an entrepreneur, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have, a tremendous budget to just try different things. I didn't have all of these other things. I was in a situation where I kind of had to learn it from the ground up. And the industries that I went into with my businesses, in addition, I had very little experience. I had passion. I had interest. I loved the industries that I was going to be playing in. And that was really important because I was energized in terms of, learning the stuff I had to learn and wanting to do what I wanted to do, instead of dreading it. That's a tough place to be. But as I look back on it, that's the thing that I look back with the most fondness, is the fact that I feel a great sense of accomplishment, a great sense of pride from the idea that I went from zero to where I am. And it's one of the main reasons I feel so, like just almost compelled to share what I know and share advice with other people that are, trying to go from zero to wherever, or wherever they are to wherever they want to go, because I think it's a really awesome goal to set. And I think it's such an exciting and fun journey. And I think a lot of times that gets lost in today's society, where everything is about instant gratification and how can we make more faster, and how can we cut expenses and increase revenues and all these other things, which again are totally valid and important. But I think sometimes the learning side of it, the personal growth side of it, gets overshadowed by all that. And I think that's a bit of a shame, because I think the ability to go out there and teach yourself a skill, or even learn a skill from a mentor, or from some other person or group of people, a mastermind group or whatever, where they're sharing ideas with you, and then being able to implement that stuff in your business, and then seeing the results, and then being able to look at something, identify a problem, consider different alternatives for how to solve it, and then being able to go in there and try different things until you get it resolved. That's something that you need to take a tremendous amount of pride in, because that kind of perseverance, that kind of self-reflection, that kind of adaptation is not common. It's not something that everybody could do. So, be proud of what it is that you're doing every day, and enjoy the process, regardless of where you are today and where you want to go. Keep your eye on that prize and keep fighting and focusing. But at the same time, reflect. Be excited about what you've done. Be excited about how far you've come. And don't lose sight of that also. And just enjoy the journey the whole way through. As always, if you have any questions, if you have any feedback, share them with me at leverageshow.com. And until next time, make it happen.